Hey, we are back this week again. And tonight we still have Chanel and we also have Itumeleng joining us from the youth part. You know how it goes. And we're also trying to get Andile on board. And guys, this week is one of those really sad weeks wherein we've been through a very hard time here in South Africa, especially in Johannesburg and the KZN. And I think it's one of those appropriate times to start looking at ourselves as individuals as opposed to looking at collective decisions. So collective decisions can be there, but we don't have control over those. So I think tonight's session is really going to help you to look into what really makes you tick. Last week, we tried to get that across, but tonight, Chanel is really going to take us through the presentation, and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. What we've also learned is that a lot of things in life happen because of your own values. So when you're not very clear about what your values are, you will find yourself making decisions based on what other people want. So tonight we are going to make sure that you understand what your values are, your core values are. So Chanel, welcome. Itumeleng, welcome. Please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, Matsileng, thank you so much for inviting me again this evening to join you on your platform. I think it's a wonderful platform that you have created where people can air their views, where it's a learning platform. I'm all about learning and education. And I'm actually going to I introduced myself at the beginning of the presentation that I'm going to push play now. So I'm not going to repeat that because otherwise our viewers are going to hear it twice. So I'll just wait until I do that, if you don't mind. We'll do it like that. Thank you. But thanks so much for having me again this evening. Last week we had a couple of sound issues, but tonight we're up and running. So that's great. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, Dumi. Okay, we seem to have connectivity problems with Dumi, but she will be joining us after the presentation from Chanel. So let us get right through it. Please, guys, make sure that you have your paper and pen close by so that you can take questions. And then after the presentation, you can ask Chanel anything to do with values.
Absolutely. Right, Matsileng, would you like me to share the presentation?
Okay. Yes, please. We are.
All right, let's see if the blonde can click in the right place. Here we go. All right. Okay. And there we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chanel Peverett. I wear many hats, but this evening I have my DeMartini Method Facilitator and DeMartini Values Facilitator hats on. And what I'm going to be talking to you about is the topic of values. And I think now more than ever in our country at the moment, where we are experiencing such dire circumstances in many forms, the only thing that we can really control is not what is outside of ourselves, but what is on the inside. We cannot control external events, but we can control how we react to those events. So, and aligned with that is choice. So we make choices as to how we're going to react. And that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. The choices that we make and how every single decision that we make in our lives is aligned with our individual hierarchy of values. So I'd like to thank Matsileng Mogodi for inviting me onto her platform. I get it now this evening so that I can address you. We did have a similar talk last week, but unfortunately we had a couple of sound issues where we were trying to stream across a number of platforms. So those of you who are online again this evening, welcome. You'll probably be able to hear far better this evening. And I do invite you, as I'm sharing this very short presentation with you, I'm going to be sharing for about 10 to 15 minutes max on what values are and the different perspective that we have on values. Once I've done that, we're going to take questions. So as you are listening to this presentation, I'd like you to jot down the questions. You're welcome to type them into the chat as well, so that we're aware of what they are. We're going to be answering as many of those questions as possible. But if you can't type fast enough, then write them down, and perhaps we can start typing them in after that. But do listen carefully, and if there's anything that you're not sure about or you want clarification on, then that's why we're here this evening to do that. Right. So as you can see, the title on this slide is Values. What makes you tick? In other words, what drives you intrinsically from within? Okay. And what drives us intrinsically from within is something that we don't need external motivation from without to do. So that's very important to be aware of. Right. So as I mentioned, all the decisions we make, every single decision, from the time we wake up in the morning till the time we go to sleep at night, is made according to our own individual hierarchy of values. There is no one else on earth like you. And that's really something to celebrate. I don't know of anyone of my friends or family or people whom I meet who don't want to be just themselves. So in looking at our individual hierarchy of values, it helps us to just get back to who we are, who we really are, authentically. Okay, we want to be authentic beings. I don't want to be anyone else ever but me. And we need to be able to celebrate that and live that in all areas of our lives. So your personal values factor is your own unique intrinsic values that are specific to you, right? No one has a value system that is exactly the same as you. It's impossible. What's important is to realize that it is demonstrated in your life. And the values that we are going to be exposing you to this evening, and the discussion we're going to have around the process of determining your values, is very important when we're looking at how particularly it is demonstrated in your life. Because very often we are in denial of what is really important to us, or we think we know what is important to us. But when we do a real checkout, and once we've answered a number of very pertinent questions, and we look at what's sitting in front of us on that sheet of paper, we can have a number of reactions. We can either go, okay, yes, great confirmation. I just wanted confirmation of who I am. Yes, this is me. I am setting goals aligned with my values. I'm happy. Or you could look down at this value determination process that you've completed, and you could have another reaction and go, I don't like what I see. I didn't realize that this is the person who is, this is me every day. This is not what I want. And then we could teach you how to shift some of the values that you perceive to be low. And if you want to shift them up, we can teach you how to link that. And the only way in which you can do that is link it to what is currently high. But when you do this value determination process, it is a reality check for you, because you need to be brutally honest with yourself, okay? Because you're looking at what it is truly demonstrated in your life. This is what it is, whether you like it or not, and whether you're willing to face up to that or not. Another important point when it comes to values is we are not looking at values from the perspective of social idealisms, as you can see on the slide here, such as integrity, accountability, responsibility. All of these are human traits. Everyone has integrity or accountability or displays the trait of responsibility in some area of their lives to some degree, okay? If you are human, you have every trait. So we're not looking at values here from a social idealism perspective, okay? What society expects from us. We are looking at what specifically drives you and what is your main driving factor in your life. What makes you get up in the morning? What excites you? What inspires you as an individual? The most important concept to understand where this understanding of values is concerned is that, and this is my last point on the slide, I'm pointing to it now, that voids drive values. Now that sounds very strange to people when I first introduced them to that. Voids as in what you perceive to be missing most is what you value most. Now, I know that sounds very strange, but if you think about it, and I'm going to give you an example here to illustrate this. Say you want to lose spending time, energy, money. You're going to surround things in your space that around you, and you have things in your space that relate to losing weight, because that's your goal. Because what you perceive to be missing, the shapely body or the number that you want on the scale, that which you perceive to be missing is now what is driving you most. So that currently is your highest value. It is your current highest value. So that's interesting. That might sound interesting to you, using the word current highest value, in that your values could shift. Okay, your values can shift and change. They can shift and change either as a result of an external event. Okay, so something that comes into your life, or something that happens to you over which you have no control, and then you have a shift in values according to an external event, or something, a cataclysmic event, some crisis that happens in your life. Okay, or you can choose to shift your values. So either it changes as a result of an external event, or you can choose to change your values. Right? But what's important is the fact that voids drive values. So once you've now, say, lost those 10 kilograms, you may then realize that in another area of your life, suddenly some other values have shifted a bit lower. So you were spending so much time in the gym, you weren't spending much time with friends. So in the social area of your life, you're feeling a bit disconnected from friends. So now you're going to spend more time, energy, money, giving space to friends, okay, or spending time with other people. So that might become a higher value. And so the goal that has been achieved of the weight loss may move down. So the physical area of your life will not feel like, won't be as high as it was, and it's going to move down naturally and make space for the next void, right? So what is the next void that I need to fulfill? So you might be asking now, geez, Nawale, are you going to be changing and shifting your values always? Yes, you probably will. Okay, so your value determination process that you go through, and I tend to do this 4 times a year, because I find that seasonally I need to revisit my value determination process, ask myself the questions again, and see where I'm at, because we do shift and change. We are evolving beings. We are changing all the time. But I do find, however, that certain core values in my life, for example, tend to stay the same. So the mental area of my life, reading, researching, learning, that remains a core value, and has remained a core value for many, many years, because I just feel like I can never know enough. So there is always a perpetual void there, because I can't know enough. So that void will not be fulfilled. Okay, so it's one of the biggest driving factors in my life. I'm also very inspired, not motivated, that's external. I'm inspired intrinsically where vocation is concerned, because I'm always trying to serve ever greater numbers of people with what I'm able to offer, and the services and the products I'm able to offer. So that is a perpetual void, because I can never serve enough people. Financially, I'm not financially independent yet. Okay, many of us, I'm sure, aren't. Very few people in the world can say that they are truly financially independent. So that is also a perpetual void and a driving factor. And I haven't achieved that goal yet. So some of the core values tend to stay the same. But short-term goals and values of, like, losing weight, for example, that's a temporary value that once it is fulfilled, then it will shift down and something else will take its place. Right, so that's a very important point to remember, that voids drive values. What we perceive to be missing is what we value most. Right, so naturally then, the more important a value, the higher it will be on your hierarchy of values. And in that area of your life, you will tend to have more discipline, more order. And the inverse of that, of course, then is the less important a value, the lower it will be on your hierarchy of values, and you will have less discipline and more disorder, more chaos. Right, so in our lives, we have areas of order and we have areas of chaos. We're always going to have both in equal amounts. Interesting as well is that then anything that you perceive as supporting your values, you will label as good or wonderful or fantastic or terrific. But anything that you perceive as challenging your highest values, you will label then as bad or awful or terrible. So you'll want to reject it. So anything that supports your highest values, you will want to attract towards yourself. And anything that you perceive as challenging your highest values, you will want to repel. You want to push out of your space, which is a natural tendency. So we all want to get to this stage where we can truly say this. And I know very few people who can really truly say, I do what I love and I love what I do. But I have a slightly different perspective, and this perspective is inspired, again, all these teachings I'm sharing you with this evening are teachings that I have learned from one of my greatest mentors, Dr. John Demartini, who is a human behavioral specialist from the United States, who visits South Africa 4 times a year. Unfortunately, with COVID now, he hasn't been here for about 2 years, but he runs some of his programs in South Africa. And I trained under him 11 years ago as a Demartini method facilitator, and then a couple of years ago as a Demartini values facilitator. And this is one of the things that he suggests. All right, so I want you to look at the next slide here. And the only way in which you can truly do what you love is by delegating. So what you really want to dedicate your day to doing and your life to doing, you can only truly do if you delegate the small stuff, the low priority things in your life that you regard as low priority. But remember that whatever you're choosing to delegate that you regard as a lower priority might be a higher priority for someone else. And they might actually enjoy that job role or responsibility or that specific task. So the first step is, in order to really do what you love, and that what you're doing, what you love is then what is driving you intrinsically from within and what is inspiring you in your life. You can only truly do that by firstly trying to delegate what you can, which you perceive to be lower on your values. Once you've done that, there are certain things though that sometimes we are stuck with that you can't delegate, all right? And you will know in your life what that is, okay? Whether it's in your home, whether it's cooking, cleaning, washing, whether it is in your work environment, whatever area of life it falls into, you can only truly love, do what you love by delegating. And then the things that you're stuck with, those job roles and responsibilities and tasks that you really can't get rid of, you've tried to shed them, you've tried to delegate them to someone and no one wants it, so you're stuck with it. That's when we need to learn to love something that we perceive we don't love, all right? So it feels like a have to. So doing what you love is a want to, but doing what you feel you have to is something that is feels like a must, a have to, an ought to. So the only way in which you're going to love what you do then, those tasks with which you are left that you couldn't delegate, is by linking. And we can teach you how to link what you perceive to be low and what you're stuck with, you couldn't delegate, to your 3 highest values. And that's the only way in which you can truly say, I do what I love and I love what I do. Right, so I'd also like to introduce you to the 7 areas of the Wheel of Life. And we operate in all 7 areas of life, but to a greater or lesser degree. So essentially, I don't want to be disempowered feel disempowered in any of these 7 areas of life. Essentially, one wants to be able to flatline them and say, yes, I am just as empowered physically as what I am spiritually, mentally, vocationally, financially, familiarly, and in a social realm. So all 7 areas of life, I don't really want to feel disempowered in any of those areas. However, I have to acknowledge that I tend to operate more in probably these 3 areas of life. Why? Because that's where my greatest voids lie. Okay, so the area of life where my greatest voids lie will be the areas of my life where I have the highest value. Okay, because that's where I'm operating. That's where I'm spending the energy, the time, and the money on. Okay, so we will be going into a little more detail around the 7 areas of life and how we operate in those areas. So if you have questions around that, please ensure that you pop them down and we can talk about them. But the benefits, I want us to look at the benefits of knowing your values. Why even do this? Why go there? Well, the first point I have here is the fact that when you are setting goals, if you're not setting goals aligned with your highest values, then you are often setting up fantasies. You're setting up goals that are unachievable because they're not authentic. Okay. And if you're setting goals that sound like have to's, then that's not you speaking. That's someone else setting a goal on behalf of you. And you're allowing yourself to inject their value system into your life. What is important to them is now ruling your life. So a good way, one of the top reasons to know your values and determine them authentically and be brutally honest with yourself and look at what your life is presenting currently is that it helps you to set and achieve goals that are aligned with your highest values, because those are the only ones that you're really going to achieve. Otherwise, they're fantasies, they feel like they're goals that are unattainable, and that can be very depressing. The second point I have here is that you then feel inspired to do even the most mundane of your day-to-day activities. So that relates to what I said previously of if I know what my values are, and I know I have some job roles that I can't outsource at the moment, and I'm finding it really tough to do those during the day. Once I know my 3 highest values, I can then learn how to link what are the lowest ones, the lowest job roles and tasks to what, and see if I can see how they benefit me in my 3 highest values, then I'm still in an inspired state. Okay. You can also empower any area of your life that you currently perceive as disempowered. So the example I gave you earlier of the area of feeling disempowered in the physical area of your life, wanting to lose weight, and then setting that goal because you perceive it as a void. The only way in which you're going to be able to do that is if you link it to what is currently high in your life. Otherwise, it's unachievable. So knowing your values also increases your focus, your drive. I find that when I've completed the value determination process, I then just feel like I'm on board with myself again. I'm more focused, I'm more driven, I'm more inspired to achieve what it is that I've set out for myself to achieve. And finally, the most important one for me would be the fact that it assists in helping you to define your purpose. Why have you been put on earth? What is your ultimate purpose? What is it that makes you tick? What drives you? Because that is what is going to be fulfilling to you. You're going to only going to lead an authentic, fulfilled life if you can truly identify your purpose. So your values determines your purpose, right? What it is that you perceive to be missing is what you value most, and that is the driving factor in your life. That is the end in mind that you want to achieve. So ultimately, knowing your hierarchy of values is truly the key to the doorway of a more inspired life. And I look forward to serving you this evening as much as I can, answering some of your questions that you may have about values. But we also have another offering this evening, and I'm just going to put it on the table right up front so that you know what is available for you. Dr. Demartini, this is his line: the quality of the questions you ask determines the quality of your life. He often says that, and all of his programs and his method, his Demartini method, as well as the value determination, is centered around questions, asking quality questions and drilling down really deep to find out what truly is it that inspires you from within. So before I give you the offering, a little exercise for you. I'm going to send you home with a bit of homework, and perhaps you can start thinking about it now. You may have questions about this later in the session, but I'd like to differentiate between imperative and indicative language, because we can easily start to identify our values merely by listening to what we say and how we speak. So imperative language is when you hear yourself saying to yourself, I have to, I should, I ought to, I'm supposed to, I need to. That is an injected value system. You are allowing yourself to inject someone else's values into your life. And that's not the true, authentic you speaking. But indicative language is when you hear yourself saying to yourself, I want to, I would like to, I would love to, I desire to. Then you are aligned intrinsically. and you are driven from within, and that is the true you speaking. So I invite you, little exercise, to even try this for a day. And some people find this quite challenging, and it's quite it has quite an arresting effect on your life and the way you perceive your actions in a day, and what you're saying to yourself and how you're acting on what you're saying to yourself. So listen to yourself. Try it just for a day, but even try to do it for an entire week. And every time you say must or should, stop and go, who's speaking there? Is that really me? Am I doing this to please my children? Am I doing this because my spouse has it's something that inspires him more, but it's not as inspiring to me? Okay. Is it my mom? Is it my dad? Is it my teacher? Who is that speaking? Because it's not me. Right, so there's a little task for you, a challenge that I thought I'd put out there. It really is quite interesting to see once you start analyzing what you say, because very often, like we are what we eat, we are what we say, and we are what we think as well. So the only thing that we can control are our thought processes, and we can control understanding what is it that makes us tick. So this evening, what we have on offer is a values workshop that I will be running on the 31st of July, Saturday. I'll be doing it via Zoom from 9 to 1. We will have a short break in between. And what we will be doing is taking you through the value determination process. Now, this value determination process, you can go and complete on Dr. Demartini's website. And you can do it there, and it's available for free. But from experience, what I've noticed with a lot of my clients is that they struggle to hold themselves accountable and be truly, brutally honest with themselves. And if it's done within a workshop setting where the questions are facilitated by a facilitator like me, where I'm challenging you and I'm saying, is it really that? Or what specifically about that? What specifically about this? And I am in a position then to challenge you to be accountable to yourself. We find that the results are far better, and they are more authentic, they are more real. It prevents you from completing the value determination as if it were a wish list, right? Because if you're doing that, you're setting up fantasies, you're putting yourself into a bipolar state, you are inviting more stress into your life because you are setting unrealistic goals. So this is a facilitated process where we will take the value determination process, we will take you through all the questions, and then help you at the end to identify, and not identify, but articulate your 3 highest values. Because very often people struggle to put what it is that drives them intrinsically from within into words. All right, and this is where I come in and I will challenge you and say, that sounds really vague. I don't really know what you're about. I don't really know what you do. Or what is it that you want to be, do, and have in that area of your life? I'm not quite sure about what it is that is driving you. And it helps you just to refine it. And once you've refined it, if you have really defined and well-refined highest values in place, and they're articulated well, you can then use those to create those affirmations that you can repeat to yourself on a daily basis, which will also keep you focused and driven on what it is that inspires you and what makes you tick. So right now, I'm going to hand back to Matsaleng. I hope that was informative for you. It really was the tip of the iceberg. We were really scratching the surface of what values really are. And there are so many applications of values in all 7 areas of life. Also from a business perspective too. So I welcome any of those questions now. And Matsaleng, I'm now going to hand back to you. Thank you very much for listening, everyone.
Hey, thank you so much, Chanel. Please put yourself back on.
It's a pleasure, Matt. Okay, are we ready for some questions? I couldn't see any questions coming through in the chat.
Well, we were waiting for you to finish. We wanted you to go through.
I thought they'd be typing in some questions, so that's what I was looking for, but I didn't see.
No, don't worry.
Any.
The questions are coming.
All right, wonderful, perfect.
Questions are coming.
I'm ready. So, I'm ready.
Yeah. So because we couldn't do the proper intros, I would like Tumi and Andile to now introduce themselves before they start asking you questions. But the beauty of values is that
Mm.
it is so critical for everyone, because whatever we choose, whatever we decide, is based on values. So it's actually like one of those tricky ingredients that we need for our lives. But Andile, Dumi, please introduce yourselves so that we can get on with it.
Okay. Right. Then we can go first.
Ladies first.
Dumi,
Okay,
ladies
me
first.
Yes, Timmy. Yeah, Timmy can go first. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you can all hear me clearly. Hi everyone, thank you for the invite. My name is Itumeleng Baibani, and I'm very glad to be part of this conversation because I think just
Breaking up a bit.
We're losing you a bit, Dumi.
Yeah, I think there's a lag. I think there's a bit of a lag, Metzeling.
Yeah. Itumeleng, your screen has frozen a bit. So Andile, maybe introduce yourselves in the meantime.
Oh, let's do
Okay.
that.
All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name is Andy Dembete, and I am power regulations practitioner by profession and a brand innovator, an all-round creative, basically, and also very happy to be a part of this evening's conversation, because obviously, um, as you've shared some key points around values, with a few questions that I have already, that I'm really thinking about, and hopefully we can engage on some of them, and possibly extend it further, offline as well, to just break some of them down, because they're so broad to an extent that you need to have probably a workshop, and that's why also Dumi was asking me this afternoon on WhatsApp. She was saying to me, Andy, is Chanel and Matsileng doing this as a campaign, or is it leading up to something like an event or workshop? And it would have been nice to have something like that. Because of COVID, you can't have like events where we're together, but it would be
Well, the beauty of today's
yeah.
times is we have technology.
We do it
Yes, yes,
online.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can have an event where we do workshops and break down everything. So yeah, that's who I am. Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay,
Andile.
excellent.
Dumi, we lost you a bit there.
yes, apologies for that. You for so yes, my name is Itumeleng Baibani, and thank you for having me on this conversation. When I heard about it, I thought this is really quite an interesting subject to explore, because we all have values that we, I guess, subscribe to, but oftentimes I don't think we check ourselves. And I say this, I think, just coming on the back foot of what we've experienced, right, this past weekend and this week. I guess you could look at that situation as maybe some people having had to suspend some of their values, just to put food on the table or to fight for a cause, and other people having to, promote or uphold their values. So I thought this is an interesting conversation, and especially when you just look at how youth, in fact, are navigating this world that is just so complex, and we're dealing with just so many issues, and finding ourselves in a position where we feel responsible, to act in some way or another, to bring about change and change, narrative or the experiences of future generations. So yes, it's really an interesting conversation. I think I do have behind us that I just want to just, I guess, at the 7 areas of life, that you mentioned, Chanel, just unpacking those, but really just trying to figure out, like, how do you merge those areas of life with your values, because each one of them, I would say, affect a different area of life differently, right? So
Correct.
I guess when we talk if I say my values are, right? So my values are opportunity and so those could maybe just speak to social or family. How do they link to like finances or all these other areas of life? So I just wanted to get that sort of understanding, like should we establish our values based on those life so that you have like a whole value system, and in situations that challenge you, that are external, out of your control, or situations where you choose to adjust your value system, they still make sense to who you define yourself as based on the values. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So am I correct in hearing that you're asking me just to elaborate a little bit on each of the 7 areas of life and what we mean by those words, those 7 words? Is that what you'd like me to do? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
yes.
Chanel.
Yes,
What I also heard Itumeleng asking is, so how does she merge her own values with the 7 areas of life? So,
okay, it'll be expressed in those areas. So perhaps if I can just give an overview of each of them, then that might then generate some more questions. So if we're looking at the spiritual area of life, in that area specifically, when we were in society, when we mentioned the word spiritual, our first default tends to be to religion, okay? And very often our spirituality is expressed in a religious form, but the spiritual area of life also looks at our level of self-awareness, of knowing who we are, because if we don't know who we are, we can't possibly know others. If we don't value who we are, we can't value others, and we can't expect the world to value us if we don't value ourselves. So the spiritual area of life is also looking at your level of self-awareness, how well you know yourself, okay? If we look at the mental area, in that area of life, we're looking at, okay, what am I learning, reading, studying, researching? All right, and what specifically, what is the topic, what is the area of interest that I'm doing those activities in? Where am I strategizing, planning? All of that goes into the mental area of life too. So whatever that topic is, what the top area of interest is, that'll be a high area of value. So you're thinking about it, strategizing around it as well. Vocationally, there we're looking at your purpose, your career, your job, what it is that you are destined to do, your calling, so to speak, how driven you are in that area to achieve and see it as your life's work. Okay, this is my life's work. This is what I've dedicated my life to doing or achieving. Okay, financially, there you're looking at what are you spending, saving, investing. How am I spending, saving, investing? So that also with the spending, the saving, and the investing, whatever you're spending, saving, and investing in or on, that will reveal a lot about what you are dedicated to. What am I dedicated to, committed to? And that will also help to reveal the value. Okay. So we're looking at spiritual, mental, vocational, financial. I don't have them in front of me now, so I'm just rattling them off here in my head and writing them down.
Yeah.
Familial, then we have familial and social and physical. Okay. So in the familial area of life, this is an interesting one because when you say the word familial, you immediately think of family. But from a familial perspective, very often we regard friends as family. So your familial area of your life is not necessarily referring only to your blood relatives, but to those who you regard as family. So who do you bring into the inner circle? Who's part of the inner circle? It could be family, most definitely blood relatives. It could be friends. It could be colleagues with whom you work as well. It could be, as I mentioned last week, pets. Okay, I once worked with a woman who said, well, I don't have any family. So what do you do? No, someone is, you have family in a specific form. And it might not be in a blood relative form. No, well, my parents have passed away. My brother passed away. I have no one. So I said, well, who lives with you in your house? And she said, well, my dog. I said, well, there we go. There's your family. And I said, well, do you spend a lot of time with your dog? Do you regard the dog as part of your family environment? She said, yes. So she said, I've never really thought about it like that. But, and that just reveals to us what I didn't discuss in our presentation, which is one of the things I discussed in the workshop, is the fact that we often in our lives, we perceive things to be missing, but nothing's ever really missing. It's just in another form. And if we go out and we look for that form and we ask the right questions to find the form in which it is, then and we can be grateful for it in the form that it is, then we're far better off. So for her, it was just so emancipating to realize that, oh my word, I've always thought I didn't have family, but I didn't see it in the form in which it was lying next to my bed every night, coming into my back door, wanting a meal, so that pet for her, then when she realized this is family, that was very special. And I said to her, well, it proves again that universal law of nothing is ever missing. It's just in another form. So if we look for it in the form, so even though voids drive values, and what we perceive to be missing is what we value most, if we really go and look for it in our lives, nothing is ever missing. We just need to find the form it's in. However, if we look at it and we see the form it's in and we don't like the form, then we can change the form by doing the linking to the highest values again. Okay, so that's a familial perspective. From where the social area of life is concerned, when I say social, then people think, oh, socializing. So the social area of our lives is not only about, having the proverbial cup of tea or coffee or meeting someone for coffee or a meal or relaxing. The social area of our life is also about connecting. So it's about networking. It's about how connected am I to the people around me? How good a networker am I? So it refers to networking and connect, your level of connectedness. Okay, so not just who are my friends. Okay, so it's not that simplistic. And then finally, the physical area of your life refers not only to your physical body, your physiology, but also to your physical environment. What do I choose to surround myself with or by? Okay, do I like having children in my space? Do I prefer to have animals in my space? Okay, I'm not so crazy about people. I want animals in my space. Okay, these people exist, all right. What equipment do I have in my space? How does that relate to my highest value, and what interests me, what drives me? And then also our not just our physical environment, but how we think of our bodies in relation to our purpose, and the lack of the degree of respect or disrespect we have for our bodies, how well we're looking after ourselves from a health perspective as well. So that's basically the 7 areas of life, and our values are expressed in those 7 areas of life to a greater or lesser degree. I hope that makes sense, Andile. Does that give you a little more clarity?
Yes,
okay?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We lost Itumeleng again, but she said something very critical. She said, this week, people may have decided to move away from suspended. She used the word suspended. People suspended their values. So meaning that whatever has happened this week was not really their values. So can you just link the two to say the things people did this week, are they linked to their values or not? Did they just do it for the fun of it? Was it politics? Was it just fun?
I'll be honest with you, Matt, I'm a little reluctant to comment on that because I'm quite apolitical, and I think it's quite dangerous, on a public platform to be discussing anything vaguely related to politics. You'll get yourself into trouble doing that. But if I think about one's core values, if there's something that you truly believe, I don't think that you will waver. I don't think you'll waver. I think people, what happened this week was we had a mass hysteria happening. That's really what we had. It was a form of mass hysteria, and it was really just a form of opportunism. So I don't think that one can relate it to intrinsic values. I think it was hype. And I don't think that they, if they suspended any values, then they were societal values. There were societal values of respect and a respect for property, respect for self, respect for another human being. Those societal values, which are, remember, those societal values then are actually human traits. So they were just displaying or not displaying a particular human trait. But I don't think if you are truly committed to something, I don't think you'll allow anything to get in your way of achieving it. Okay, because quite frankly, getting involved with anything like that, if it were me personally, I would feel is a waste of time because it's distracting me from my purpose. And anything that distracts me from my purpose is giving me brain noise. I don't need brain noise. I need to stay focused. So, and if I had to get involved with anything like that, it would probably, it would distract me from the purpose, and I would regard it as a low priority. It would be a low priority. So it's different for everyone, So for someone else, reacting in that way would be a high priority. In my life, that would be a low priority. So, I mean, it sounds like I'm now forming a judgment on that, but all I'm trying to show everyone is that if it doesn't resonate with my hierarchy of values and what and what is important to me, then I'm going to reject it. I'm going to repel it out of my space. I'm not going to want it as part of my space, or I'm going to label it as bad. Okay. Because the judgments of good or bad are merely in the eye of the beholder, and the eye of the beholder is the individual. And as individuals, we are naturally subjective. We can't run away from ourselves. We are who we are, and we make decisions based on our highest values. So there are some people out there who would have supported the actions this week because it matches their value system or it resonates with them. So that's why they're not labeling it. So you're always going to have a balance in society of where people are supporting an event like that and other people are rejecting it. And you'll probably find that it's 50-50. Because the world is balanced. Whether we like it or not, we think life is imbalanced, but it actually is perfectly within balance. So if you look at the statistics, you'll probably see there are just as many people supporting that as what there are people who are not supporting it. So that would be my stance. It's probably a very safe stance. I'm playing it safe, but it's also, I'm looking at it from a psychological values perspective. I'm not looking at it from a societal perspective because I feel like that is not it won't align with our concept of values. It won't. So if they're doing that and they're following that, it means it's a void. It's a void.
That's cool. That's cool, Chanel. I just want to give a chance.
It was quite a difficult question.
Can you believe that we are almost out of time? We so many questions.
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes, so let's take a few more. I see we have a question in the chat here. What's the quickest or easiest way?
Let's get Andile first. And then
that's fine.
In the meantime,
Okay, perfect. I'll have a look here.
All right. So Chanel, just to ask you this question. So you mentioned something about values, right? And what in the voice that it brings. That it being valuing your values coming from your voice.
Your voice.
So yes. So I wanted to find out from you how, because I'll use me as an example, right? So let's say, in fact, I do value my profession and where I want to go with it, and at the same time, my profession needs one to always be out there talking to people, networking, and basically being able to engage with people on an ongoing basis. And when I initially started out, my mentor, who I used to work with at the time, mentioned that I was too much in my shell and I probably wouldn't survive longer if I keep going at this rate. Not because I lack talent, but because I was too much in my shell. So I have to learn rather to come out of my shell.
So to be more extroverted, am I understanding you correctly? It's more extroverted.
Yes.
Okay.
And balance out the work and the career as it goes along. So this also ties in back to what you value. And would you say that one, let's say if someone is reserved, can they neglect their value of being reserved for a certain point in order to gain more in the area of the career which falls under, is it professional? I forgot. It falls under professional.
Vocational.
Yes. Vocational, yes.
Okay, so Andile, what I'd like to address first is the word reserved. You mentioned reserved, and you mentioned being extroverted, opposed and introverted. So reserved or introverted, opposed to extroverted. Okay, so those are not values; those are human traits, and that's where people go wrong. They're not values; they're human traits. Every single person on earth is just as extroverted as what they are introverted. I have throughout my day and throughout my week in my life, I have introverted moments and I have extroverted moments. So when I'm at a dinner party and someone starts talking about cars, I'm a Philistine. I'm the blonde in the room. I can't contribute. I have no knowledge in that area. They start talking about education and human behavior. Then I switch on. Then I'm fired up. Then I'm speaking and I'm engaging and then I will be perceived to be extroverted. But why am I being perceived as an extrovert in that moment? Because they're talking about something that is of a high value to me. So I'm going to come across as extroverted. So you said you have a very you're a brand innovator. Did I hear you correctly earlier?
Yes,
right.
Correct,
so when people start talking about brands and brand innovation and creativity, that's probably when you will get a lot of airtime, and you'll be talking a lot, and people won't be able to get a word in edgeways because you'll probably be speaking a lot, because you know a lot about the subject and you're interested in it. But what's a topic that you're not interested in, for example? Like that you couldn't care less about, you'd never read a book about it, you would never read a blog about it, you'd never Google anything about it. What topic is that for you?
Around pets, anything on animals or pets.
Okay,
yes,
you know what? I resonate with you. I resonate with you. I feel cooking.
Yeah, cooking as well. Yeah, even cooking as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's another
so in other words, so you and I at that dinner party will be quiet. Okay, so we'll be sitting in the corner, and people might perceive you in that moment to be an introvert or be reserved. But it's because you're expressing the human trait of being introverted or reserved, because in that moment you can't actually contribute it, and you actually, let's be honest, couldn't care less, because it doesn't mean anything to you. So you will only contribute and share and have a conversation about something in an area that interests you, and that's normal. It's humanity. So when that ex-boss of yours or mentor of yours said to you, well, you're going to have to change, and in that moment you may have felt a bit compromised. Hey, did you kind of feel, why should I change? I don't want to change. I'm happy with me. Did you feel that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so why should I change for you?
I think though sometimes when you look up to somebody and they say you need to change that, you somehow feel, for me to be acceptable or to be accepted by this person, I really have to change. But when you understand values, you will know that there is no need to change, because this is who you are. And who you are is okay as it is.
And also, I think the reason that you probably took note of that is because he was your mentor. So you'd probably put him on a bit of a pedestal, and you were looking up to him and you were admiring him. And if he was saying, okay, you mustn't be so reserved, you're like, oh, okay, well, he's amazing. And you admire him so much that you would allow him to inject, you would allow yourself to inject his value system into your life.
Chanel, we're running out of time.
Okay, all right. No.
Yeah, answer the question there from.
Okay.
Is there a question?
Oh, I thought you can see the question.
Yes, I can. Is it from Mumika? Yes,
Yes.
Ngwenya. Okay, what's the quickest or easiest way that can help me discover or get to know what I value most? I would say, come and do our values workshop. And that's not just me selling our workshop. You know, come and spend 4 hours working on yourself, getting to know yourself better, facilitated process, a few questions, and you'll walk away going, okay, I now know me better. And, you know, we don't allocate enough time to work on ourselves and kind of get to know, you know, ourselves better. And it's only when we know ourselves better that we can then offer that to the world. I see there's another question also from your second one. I seem to think there are a lot of things that I value in my life, but can't seem to find one that I value more than all of them. That's, you can't, I'm not going to say that's a good or a bad thing. Perhaps you're just not asking the right questions. So when you ask the right questions and you delve deeper, because very often I'm not satisfied with just this answer. I'll say, well, and what specifically about that do you enjoy? Okay, that. Now, what specifically about that you've just identified? What is it about that you enjoy most? So we really drill down to see exactly what it is that makes you tick, essentially, which is what we've been talking about this evening.
Yeah.
So I invite you to join us next Saturday.
I think to add on to that, Chanel, is the fact that when you do your values, you will have a hierarchy of those values. So you will know which one is number 1, number 2, and so forth.
Absolutely. And when we link in, we link to the 3 highest. So we link to the 3 highest values. So it's important to identify those. Yeah. Matt, you say we basically one more question.
Yeah.
I think she's muted at the moment. Itumeleng. Yes, to me.
Yes. So I just mute myself. I think it missed my network. So I just wanted to ask that, you know, today we talk a lot about positive affirmations, you know, to help you center yourself or to motivate yourself. So are there similar exercises that we can do to remind ourselves of our values so that we don't compromise on them?
Sorry, I don't know if I've understood the question correctly. You're asking me for what exercise can we do? Can you just repeat that? So I didn't quite hear the last bit of it.
In the same way that in the same way that we have positive, like affirmations as an exercise to motivate ourselves, is there some?
Okay, all right. That's the key word. The fact that you just used the word motivate. Okay. If we are needing to use affirmations to motivate ourselves, then that means we're needing to give ourselves a butt kick. Okay. And if you are really driven to do something and committed to do something, you're not going to have to kick your own butt to do it. No one's going to have to wake you up in the morning to do something that you really love. You're going to be waking up and can't wait to start the day so that you can do it. And that's the thing that we want to try and discover. So when I help people they create their own affirmations. You can never create an affirmation for someone. They need to create their own affirmation. You can teach them what the elements are, that it must be written in the present tense and it must be short and powerful. And there are a whole lot of things that you need to do when you're writing an affirmation. But the affirmation itself, to make it yours, must be your words. It must come from you. And if it is an affirmation, it'll be something that is inspired, not motivated. Remember, external motivation is an external concept coming from outside, okay? Inspiration is internal. That's the internal. Inspiration, you can say, is like an internal motivation. So that's how I like to differentiate between inspired and motivated. Shame, I think Tumi just dropped off the call now, so she didn't get that. But perhaps you can watch the recording. Max, it looks like we're probably going to have to wrap up. Would you like me just to? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. For Tumi,
yes.
When you find that affirmations are difficult, it means they're not your affirmations. So it's very important when you understand your values, when you know what your highest values are, your affirmation will be aligned to that.
Yes,
It will be very easy for you to do them. And you still have some questions.
Just a last one, a quick
one. No,
Yes, a quick one. So in terms of values, right? So how does one strike a balance between what they value most in terms of their career and all the other values in their lives? How does one strike a balance in that way,
All
so that
the
they don't
other areas.
so that they don't compromise family, they don't compromise vocational and all mental and all of those, so that there's a balance in their lives, because
You know
you
what?
find that a lot of the times people focus on that which they value the most, which is their career, and then they neglect other areas of their lives, and then they compromise those, unaware that they are sometimes, because as human beings, like you said, we're very subjective, so we always look inward, and when you project outward, at times we other areas in our lives which involve other people are neglected. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, that question, Andile. I find that, you know, particularly when you have found your significant other, okay, the person who you feel like, you know, your partner in life. I find that very often, whatever you are most dedicated to is what they probably least dedicated to. You with me? Okay, so those areas of your life that you regard as low and not as priorities, they will tend to be priorities for them. So as a team, you know, you kind of, nothing is ever missing then, because it's fulfilled together as a team. So, and I hope I'm making sense here, but I'm answering it from this perspective, in that, you know, we don't necessarily have to provide every element of all those 7 areas of life. So very often when someone does the value determination process, for example, and they suddenly realize that their family has not featured anywhere in their value determination, they'll suddenly revert to guilt, and they'll be like, oh, I'm so terrible. My family doesn't feature here at all. I don't see them in my value determination. I'll go, no, relax, stop. It means that there's no void. You don't perceive anything to be missing in that area of your life. There is no void. In other words, that area of your life is sorted. It's cool. It's working. There's no void. And so it's not because they're not important to you. It's just that you don't experience a void in that area of your life. So I don't know if that has helped you there a little bit, you know, just because they're lower doesn't mean they're unimportant.
Hey.
Not at all. Okay.
I'm really sorry we are out of time, but just one last word from Andile, and then from Dumi, and then Chanel.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Dumi can go first.
Okay, a question or an observation?
No, just in conclusion. We're closing.
In conclusion, we're closing.
Because of time.
I think it'll have to be Andile. Perfect.
All right, cool. Yeah, so very informative session. It was more like a workshop for me, honestly.
Oh, I'm so glad. Good.
Yeah, it felt like a workshop more than just a discussion. And hopefully I'll apply some of the teachings that you've shared with us today, because I've written some of them down, and I'll internalize them and see how they can help me in my life as well, and how also I can assist others around me, indirectly and directly as well. And hopefully we'll have more sessions in future and engage more on other subjects like purpose as well, because that's a whole nother topic for another day, which hopefully you break it down for us in terms of what is purpose, what is calling, what makes a purpose, what is a passion, and so forth.
Correct.
So you get it now.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
And you know, that is just and you know, you mentioned the concept of values, and you have a better understanding of it now, but literally we have just scratched the surface, okay, of what you could do with values. There are so many applications of values that I use in a vocational space. There are countless options. There really are. So it has a lot of applications, and those we will discuss more in the workshop. So if you're wanting to delve a little bit deeper, then you can join us for the workshop next Saturday. What I didn't mention on the presentation was that code. So if you want to join us next Saturday on the 31st of July via Zoom, that email address is there. Mats, I don't know if you want me to pull it up again. Just perhaps you can just pull it up.
We'll put it on the the chat.
Okay, fantastic. No
Yeah,
problem.
in the
Okay,
chat.
so you're gonna see it. But if you send us that code, if you send the code, if you've been online tonight and you want to send the code is I get it now, and then you will get it for $5.50 instead of $6.50. Okay. So I hope to see you all online and as many people as possible next Saturday, and let's inspire you to have an amazing life, because everyone deserves to have an amazing, inspired life. Thanks again, Matseling, for having me this evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed it again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And
Great to
thank
meet
you
you.
to everyone that stayed with us to view the whole session. And I'm hoping that you have taken something away that can help you. What is important from this session is the fact that we are all different. So when we try to be like other people, we are actually living the true core of who we are. But internally, we will always go towards who we really are and what we really like. So it is very key. Chanel mentioned something about couples, that even with couples, they are different. They complement one another. So because their values may be different, because when you're attracted to somebody that's the same as you, then only
boring.
one of you is needed. So you will always be attracted to somebody who is a complete opposite to you. So don't try to beat yourself up and say, but we are not the same, or whatever. And also with parents, I think it's very critical to understand what is important to your children. And for you youth, you young people, it is also very important for you to understand what is important to your mother, to your father, to all the people that surround you, that support you. Because when you understand what is important to your parents, you will understand why they say the things that they say and why they treat you like they do. So when parent and child understand each other's highest values, the life within the family, within communities, becomes that much more better for everyone. There you have it. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you.
us. And you can continue sending us questions. And I'm sure Chanel will also be able to answer some of those questions offline. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for the
Bye.
opportunity. Bye-bye, everyone. Good night. Good night.
Bye. Cheers. Bye.